7 people. So if you want to start recording, that'd be great.
Perfect. We should be all good.
Okay. Welcome, everybody. For you guys who don't know who I am, I'm Chris Meehan. I'm your Innovations and Technical Solutions Director for Osborne and O Sports. And today we're going to talk about Newforma and what it means for you here in the future. We discovered a need for a PIM system. When I first started, I did a technical review of the company and interviewed about 2/3 of the people within the company. So you may know me through that. Then provided a detailed report to the board. And one of the items that we identified was a need for a PIM system. And so then Sean and the board members put me on task to start researching all the different systems. And we looked at quite a few and ended up choosing Newforma. And that brings us to today's town hall. So we're going to start off with introductions, and then Sean's going to speak a little bit with a corporate message about Newforma. We'll go over the implementation plan with Pam Ruck from Newforma. Then Conan Jurgens is going to take us through what Newforma is going to do for us and an overview of some of the features. Then we'll talk about the training plan that's taking place starting next week. And then we'll leave some time for questions and answers. I've already introduced myself. I'm Chris Meehan. But part of our team is Grace Gregory, who's been on every call with me, helping plan out the training. We got to give a shout out to Sean because he's been a great support through this whole thing, going back and forth with me, looking at our selections and our research and helping to come to this point and supporting this purchase for the company. And then Roger just started, but he's been great at getting the servers set up, getting all the connections and the firewalls and all that stuff put in place. Then also on the call, we have Pam Ruck, Conan Jurgens, Stacy Dugan, and I don't know if Eric's on, but Eric's also been helping us with the server setups. And with that, I'm going to hand it over to Sean for a second for him to talk about why we chose Newforma. Sean, are you on mute? Sean, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Hi, buddy.
Sorry, I couldn't find my mute button.
No problem.
All right. So it's Chris had kind of mentioned to everyone, we heard what you guys had said. We knew there was some issues with the way we did things, very archaic. We were kind of doing Excel spreadsheets, and as we've grown as a company, we just knew that couldn't be the future of Osborne. So as Chris said, he did some really good research with a bunch of different ones that he looked at, PIM through Deltek, Autodesk, Procore, Newforma. And, we believe we settled on what's best for Osborne. I know there'll be a lot of different opinions, but we went with Newforma. We think they're what we need, what we're going to be doing for the uses that we need it for. So it's the right fit for our company. It's everything we need in the software. And I think, some of you have used it, some of you like it, some of you don't. Chris has done again a really good research on that, having committees and people on those committees to hear what their issues were before. So we believe we vetted this really well, and I think it's going to help Osborne succeed and move along. Chris has put together a really good training schedule. We've accelerated it on some fronts for some groups that need it right away. understand that as we implement this, everything might not be implemented perfectly, or every piece of Newforma that we can use, but as we continue to use it over the next 6-8 months, we'll keep implementing stuff and even creating directory structures and folders and other things that Newforma can do once it merges with the new Deltek vision. So I'll turn it back over to Chris.
All right, yeah. And that was one of the, Sean mentioned integration. Newforma does integrate with Procore, Deltek, BIM 360, Teams. And so, that was another reason that we felt that Newforma was the right fit. So now I'm going to hand it over to Pam Ruck, who's going to talk about our implementation plan. She's our customer success, not customer success manager, but our well, Pam, I'll let you introduce yourself. I'm sorry.
Well, wait 1 second, Pam. I did want to
Yes.
say one more thing. So
Absolutely.
Listen, everyone on this call, you're mostly by Zoom. I need you to listen. This is 45 minutes or whatever Chris has scheduled. Don't be doing other work. Please listen to this. This is very, very important. This is going to be our platform moving forward. And we've taken a lot of time. Pam has her time to get this together, to get the training together. So please give us your concentration today. I won't make you turn your cameras on, but I need you to be paying attention to Pam and Chris and this whole presentation. So please give us your undivided attention for this next 45 minutes to an hour.
Hey, Sean, do you want to mention too that we're requiring the training, and we've got a real flexible training schedule that runs for several months. So if you can't make one session, you could join another.
Yes. Yeah. Okay. You just meant that's perfect.
Okay.
So we're trying to, again, get everybody, this is going to be our platform, right? For production staff. And then it will branch out into other things because it's a information module. So it can deliver information for a lot of different things. It doesn't just mean it's shop drawings or RFIs. It can do a lot of different things, emails, other things we can set up. If there's an important client that we need emails for, we can do all that. So very, very important that you give us your attention today and try to understand and get to the training. The training is going to be mandatory, but like Chris said, very flexible. But you've got to get to the training and you've got to understand the usage of it. So I'll get off my soapbox.
Right, buddy. All right, Tim, you're up. I'm going to stop my video.
Okay, very good. So thank you everyone for joining. Again, my name is Pam Ruck and I have been with Newforma for 11 years. I am the manager of our training services group as well as senior project manager. So I've been working with Osborne over the last couple of months, helping to put together an implementation plan along with the rest of our Newforma implementation team, which I'll tell you a little bit about. So I'm going to share my screen.
Okay.
Chris, if you could tell me when you see it.
Not yet.
Nothing yet?
Anybody see Pam's screen? I do not. Yeah.
No.
All right. Do you have the presentation on your side? I believe you do.
Yeah,
Yep.
I can grab that.
I can pull that up as well.
Okay.
Thank you. From my side, it says I'm sharing, but apparently that's not correct.
Well, we do have 212 people online, so.
If you have if you have more than one screen, that could be it. But let me share.
Yeah, we're not seeing anything, Pam. It's not being shared, so.
Thank you.
Okay,
Grace has it, so we wanted to make sure we were prepared there. All right. So
Can you
Okay,
see it okay?
I can see it. If you want to
Yeah.
go to the second slide, please. So I wanted to just, as we get started here, tell you a little bit about the implementation process from a high level, just so you can kind of see it from a master planning standpoint. In the implementation process, even before we get started from a technical perspective, we have a discovery phase. And in that phase is where Osborne Engineering and ourselves went through a process of working with Osborne to determine their success criteria, or your success criteria for this implementation. We had some meetings talking about having a technical review, as well as starting to just put some thoughts around a preliminary project plan, and introducing the idea of that project plan to Chris and Grace and what goes into that. I see this project plan as a living document. It's something that, as Chris and Grace started to understand the process and understand how you all might want to be trained and what you're interested in, then it evolves as we go through that process. So you can move on to the Newforma implementation, please. The next slide. So in the Newforma implementation, there are 3 stages essentially. So we have the pre-deploy, deployment and configuration, which I've grouped into one, and then training the user group. And this Newforma implementation is obviously that this is where we currently are. We're between the deploy and configuration phase and the training the user group. So if you move to the next slide, just going through these somewhat quickly, a little more information about these different stages. Again, with the pre-deployment, that's where Osborne Engineering was understanding the specs for hardware. We had a kickoff call where we introduced the team, and we got to know your team, and Osborne Engineering also were able to receive your hardware, complete the pre-deployment checks, which is just making sure that the servers are set up correctly. And then we moved on to scheduling the deployment and configuration, which is the next step. And deployment is really the deployment of the Newforma software. And then configuration is configuring the system with your data and settings. It's as simple as that. And so then moving on to the training, which again, we've been working for several weeks now, understanding how the training would move forward for Osborne Engineering. And we're beginning the training. We're in a very exciting spot right now, and beginning the training next week. So if you move to the next slide, please. A little bit about, once the training begins, what we'll be doing from the Newforma and from the Newforma side, as well as working with Chris and Grace. You all will begin using Newforma. I will talk about the training in a little bit, but we will have follow-up sessions, Q&As to understand, once you have your hands on it, what questions you have, and being able to answer those questions. We'll, as an implementation team, Chris, Grace, myself, and the rest of our Newforma team will continue to review and confirm the success criteria that we had developed with you all in the very early stages of this implementation. Make sure that we're hitting targets on both sides, from the Newforma perspective as well as the Osborne Engineering perspective. And then we'll begin, rolling out the deployment and the training to company-wide. We'll continue to review and confirm the rollout plan, making sure that we're all lockstep, and then complete the full, preparing for the full rollout. So if you go to the next slide, please. So lastly, we move on to the full rollout. So we're confirming Newforma champions. We want to make sure that you all have champions in place where, that you all can go ask questions, maybe that, it's there. they get excited about that sort of thing, being the champions for Newforma within Osborne Engineering. We want to make sure that we're implementing the full rollout using our best practices, which we're providing to Chris and Grace as well as we move along. We have a great customer community as well for you all. So you can go in, you can ask questions. There's training through our Newforma University in there. For Chris and other admin, you're able to get in there and see some information about your account, all kinds of things there. And then lastly, we want to make sure that there's a smooth transition between myself and your implementation team into an introduction to our support team. So at that point, I will have our head of support join a call with Chris and Grace and whoever, you all want to have joined that. The head of support will go through, best practices from a case perspective, if you have any issues and what have you. So we want to make sure that there's a smooth transition between your implementation team and support moving forward. So if you go to the next slide, please. So this is what your implementation timeline looks like at this moment. So you can see today we're having the town hall. I've graded what we've already gone through in the past. We started conversations back in October from an implementation standpoint. What we were starting to look at, you had a few internal initiatives you all were working on, and then we really put the tires to the road in the beginning of or mid-January on, where we were going through the pre-deployment and the rollout preparation. As Chris had mentioned previously, the deployment and configuration phase is wrapping up. We're installing Newforma Project Center on your clients, NPC clients on your workstations. We're wrapping up training preparation for this first phase. As Sean had mentioned, we have a few that we're moving forward a little bit faster that are starting this week, and then the rest of the first phase will be starting next week. So the training timeline is a waterfall approach. So the number of users that you see in each phase is yet to be determined. Right now, we're just making them equal until we figure out how we're going to break it up, whether it be location or what have you. But that's something that Chris and Grace and I and Conan and Stacy are working on from a Newforma training perspective. But a waterfall approach is essentially we get the first identified group moving forward. They begin to understand Newforma, again, how it's going to relate to Osborne, how you're going to use it. Those immediate questions come up where we work through that, and then we move on to phase 2. So we're prepping for phase 2 rollout and that next group of training users and so on. So while we're working on phase 2 training, we'll be prepping for phase 3, and it continues in that waterfall approach. As Chris had mentioned, and I believe that Conan and Stacy would probably mention this as well, that if you're in those basic, that phase 2, phase 3, phase 4 training, those are the basic training sessions that everyone will receive. And if you aren't able to make phase 2 training, and that's where you've been assigned, then you'll be able to join phase 3 or phase 4. We just want to make sure that you join one of them. And I know Chris and Grace will be keeping track of that. So if you move to the next slide, please. And my last slide. So just wanted to just mention, resources that are available to you all. As we've been saying, the Newforma implementation team, we've been here since the beginning to working with Chris and Grace. We've also, again, been putting together a project plan, going through required work, the project team, roles and responsibilities, risk management, communication. We just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page, and it really helps make this process move much more smoothly. And then again, the customer community, at a high level, my implementation tracker is in the customer community as well. For someone like Chris or Grace, you're able to, and I believe Sean, you may be able to get in there as well. If you at any time, 24/7, if you were interested in where we were in the implementation process, you could go here and see your implementation and what stage you're in, as well as contacts, that it shows you who our team is, gives you pertinent documents that pertain to that phase. And then last but not least, the Newforma University again, that as you continue to move on and you've had your basic training and, down the road, you're looking for more training in different areas, that Newforma University is something that, users can go in and sign up for training that's within the university, and you can also receive AIA certifications, credit, etc. So if you have any further questions about that, you can certainly reach out to Chris or Grace and get in contact with me, and we can provide further information.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pam. As you guys can see immediately, Newforma didn't just sell us the software and say, good luck. They are part of this moving forward. They've partnered with us, and they're going to hold our hands as we get used to using the system and making sure that we use it successfully. Did anybody have any questions for Pam? Okay. Well, with that, we're up to the features overview, which Conan's going to give you an overlook of what the software can do for us. Real high level, 10,000-foot view. But Conan, if you want to share your screen, we can show everybody what you put together.
All right, see if this will hopefully come up for you.
It's working.
Okay, good. All right, so I'm Conan Jurgens. I'm the customer success manager that's directly attached to Osborne. So I'll be working with you guys. Really kind of the handoff from Pam and her group during the implementation process comes over to me. As your customer success manager, as Sean and Chris have both touched on, part of what we do is we are experts in the industry, experts of the software. So kind of the Swiss Army knife for all things Newforma. So I've actually been in the industry. Actually, it's amazing how fast time flies. I have a hard time keeping this slide up to date. I've been in the industry pretty much my entire career, but I kind of have a unique perspective in some respects because I was a customer, a very, very early adopter of Newforma. So I knew Newforma from practically the beginning. Been with Newforma for 10 years now. I've also been on the IT side of things. So clear back 99, 2000, I was helping get an architectural firm ready for the Y2K disaster that thankfully never showed up. So got a long history in the industry and with the software as well. So the way I work with Osborne is I'm essentially kind of the way I like to describe the customer success manager role is we essentially sit on your side of the table. I just happen to be employed by Newforma. I have the added benefit of having worked with Chris for a number of years at a previous customer that he worked with. And so Chris and I have known each other for a long time. We've worked together in the past, doing basically the same thing I'm going to be doing with you now. So Chris and I will kind of be partners, working alongside you and any of your internal success team managers or success team that Pam touched on as well. So I saw in the chat, one of the first questions that came up, because we were using the acronym PIM, what exactly is PIM? Or more specifically, what exactly is Newforma? What is the software that you're getting? So we've talked about all the stuff that we're doing to get it in place, who we are as your team members, but that's a good question. And project information management essentially is doing what it sounds like. We're trying to help you to manage all the project information that you have. And when you think about your projects, and I know a lot of you have probably been in the industry a long time, over the last several years, even decades, we've just seen the amount of data that we have exponentially grow. So the amount of email, amount of documents that are a part of every project, all of that stuff, is in excess of terabytes now of data that's being managed by your company and by each of your projects. So Newforma is helping to manage those physical assets, you might say, but then also helping to bring that together with all of the informational transfers that are going on as well. So you think about things like RFIs, submittals, all of the field data that you capture, a number of tasks that have to be accomplished throughout the life of a project. So there's just an incredible wealth of information that is a part of all your projects. You have all been managing and dealing with throughout your entire careers. But where an application like Newforma, being a project information management tool, really benefits you is helping to bring all that information together into one pane of glass, somewhere where it's easy for you to get access to it, easy to find things, make all of the decisions, the connections between all that data very transparent to you and to your projects and to your company. So this is an application that's designed to benefit everybody. A lot of times we feel like we kind of get forced into using certain applications. Chris, with his pre-planning, discussed with a lot of you. Some of you like Newforma, are aware of it. Some of you do not. But the intent is really to make your life easier as a user, make this information accessible to you, but also, of course, make things beneficial for your company as well. So we'll touch on some of those things as we go through some of this brief introduction of what Newforma really does. So as Chris mentioned, just kind of want to give you a sort of that 10,000 foot view. I'm probably going to dive a little bit deeper. Just want to give you a taste of some of the things that you're going to learn about Newforma in the early trainings that will start to be delivered to you in the coming weeks and months. Just give you an idea of what all does Newforma really do as an enterprise application, because really it is designed to touch nearly every aspect, every phase of your projects. So again, it is intended to be that single pane of glass, give you access, give you visibility into everything that's going on with your projects. It is designed to make your life a little bit easier. I know that's a big promise to hold a lot of times, but there are a lot of areas where Newforma is designed to automate things for you, to make you more efficient, make things easier for you that you're already doing today, but hopefully cut the amount of time it takes to actually accomplish those things down significantly and give you much greater visibility into not only things as they happen, but give you better visibility after the fact. So even down the road, year or two into the project, you have absolute knowledge of everything that happened. So one of the core features of Newforma is, at its heart, pretty basic. You're used to going to Windows Explorer, accessing all that project information that's on your file servers. But what Newforma is designed to do is really streamline that for you. So I think Chris touched on the fact that we've got connectors into all kinds of project data for you as well. So project Microsoft Teams, the SharePoint data that is on the back end of all of those teams where you put files into it. We give you access to all of the file locations. So BIM 360 is an example. You now have information that's propagated out into these cloud storage locations that can be difficult to keep track of. Well, Newforma will bring all of that into a single view for you. Again, very Windows Explorer-like, so nothing really new to you. And then we make that all visible and accessible to you. So you've got instant views of the documents or instant previews of them. We make it very easy for you to filter and sort all that information so you can find it very quickly and easily, even though you've got thousands or tens of thousands of documents. We help to establish relationships between your information as well. And I'll dive into that a bit more again later, because just kind of as an introduction, one of the things that's really challenging a lot of times for us is to really have an appreciation for the fact that there's all this data sitting out in our file server, but they do have relationships to each other. And outside of just putting those in the right folders and naming them correctly, we don't always have an awareness of that. But Newforma makes it really easy for you to see that this stuff belongs together, and here's why. And then, of course, we layer on a whole host of other abilities that Newforma provides that you'll start to learn about onto that Windows Explorer-like experience. And then because of the fact that Newforma has pointed to all of this data that you have out there, we are able to do deep dive indexing of all of that data, which means that we provide you a search engine or search tool within Newforma as well. So again, you can find information very easily, even though you've got lots and lots of information out there. Those search terms we highlight for you. We bring that information up to the surface, so it's very easy for you to identify. We also make it very easy for you to use either very basic or more complex search criteria to expand or contract what it is that you're looking for, and whether you're looking across a single project or many projects. We also provide you with file transfer capability. Now, in this day and age, that seems pretty basic. We have so many means of sending files and information to people. But where Newforma really excels, again, is bringing all that information into one pane of glass, one location where all that activity is taking place. We make it very easy for you to send large or small transfers, record a formalized transmittal with them or not, depending on your needs. But one of the things, a lot of our mechanisms that we maybe use for getting information to others don't do so well still, is they don't necessarily automate a lot of the effort for us. And they don't often do a real great job of making sure that we're keeping that information fresh and relevant. So what Newforma does is it helps, one, make sure that you have absolute control over who is accessing that information, and you know and can have visibility into that. It also helps to automate the removal of that information. And that tends to be one of the biggest problems with data transfers, is we end up with this data sitting out somewhere and it just lives out there persistently, which really, when you think about it, could start to become a real liability if we don't know that people are getting the most relevant and most accurate information. So it takes that effort on our part away. We don't have to worry about trying to clean that up. It does it for you. It also automatically communicates to everybody as well. So it will notify the recipients that that information is there. It will remind them that they should be getting that information if you'd like it to, pester them. It will also send notifications to you if you'd like to whatever degree you want. Do I want to know who has downloaded? Do I want to know who hasn't downloaded? So again, automating a lot of that information communication for you as well. Another thing that it does very well is it logs everything that's happened. And so if I want to know for sure, did somebody actually download that information that I expected them to? Did they download the right files from that batch of files I sent to them? I'll have that history of information through the project. And Newforma also keeps copies of exactly what was sent when it was sent too. So again, you have a very thorough record of every transfer of information that you provide. We also help you to manage all that email. You know, email still tends to be the #1 form of communication, especially for formalized communication on projects. So we help you to get all that information out of your siloed personal mailbox and get it filed in a way that conforms to the way you're comfortable with managing your email out into the project record as well, which then of course makes it highly accessible, makes it very visible, makes it a part of the project record, and makes it accessible to the project team as well. So that information, again, isn't locked up in storage locations where people don't have access, don't have visibility. So I talked briefly earlier about information integration. And that is really one of the very powerful things that Newforma is continuously doing for you on the back end. As you deal with all this information, all this communication, all of this logging of things like RFIs and submittals, Newforma is doing something that you probably have had to in some fashion either do yourself or have not had at all. And that is helping you to bring all that stuff together in one place so you have easy access to everything at any point in time. So you see submittals here as an example. With the submittal, we know that typically there is communications going on, probably emails that are going back and forth, maybe involving one or more people within your organization, as well as people outside of your organization. There are files on your file server associated with things like the submittal. There is other soft information you might think about that might be associated with that. What Newforma is designed to do, again, is help bring all that together. So I'm not hunting around in all those different locations when I'm trying to find how did we come to this conclusion, especially if later on litigation and things like that comes up. So we bring all of the information together in one place. We have all of the comments that were made back and forth. We have all of the files associated with it. Everything that was sent and everything that was received is recorded together for you. All email that was sent back and forth, that's all attached. Any supporting documents, again, that referenceable information that's out on my file server, I can find all of that quickly and easily. anything that's related to it. So if there are other things that submittal led to, maybe modifications or revisions of documentation or other actionable items that we needed to do, all of that is recorded. So I can follow that breadcrumb trail, you might say. And we record everything that was ever done as well by any team member inside or outside of your organization. So again, all of that information in one place at my fingertips. So it's already a lot, and that's just the core basic functionality. Newforma also has a whole host of mobile applications that are available to you that you'll be learning about. Gives you access to a lot of this information while you're out and about, which most of us are anymore. Still gives you access to not only the data, but the communications channels, any information that you've had, and even the ability to share that information from anywhere at any time. It also allows you to create those communications channels through web portal as well as mobile applications for consultants, contractors outside your organization. So again, you're giving them extending capabilities of Newforma out to the entire project team. So they can send information to you, they can receive information from you, they can get access to various portions of the log information that you want to share with them. And Chris touched on earlier that Newforma is designed to interconnect with a lot of other applications as well. So you will slowly find Newforma becomes sort of that center of your project information universe. We tap into all kinds of other applications that you use on a daily basis to help bring that information into Newforma or communicate that through those applications. And we will do that through the life cycle of your projects as well. So Chris already touched on the fact that from Deltek, Newforma can tap into Deltek at the inception of your projects, feed a lot of that project information into Newforma, start up your Newforma projects for you. So we do a lot of automation there as well, and make sure all of that communication of information is seamless and consistent throughout your projects. And really, at the heart of all of that, again, is really that transparency. We know that on every project, we face the potential of errors, of litigation, of other problems. Newforma helps to make sure that those are minimized as much as possible because of that visibility, but it makes it very easy for you to create those audit trails automatically and find everything you need whenever you need it. So again, there's a lot there, but that's what my job is to help you do as well. I'm here working side by side alongside Chris and your champions. After implementation's all done, get through all that training planning and that initial training, my job is to work with you just to make sure that any areas, any workflows that you have, we help you to figure out how to get that into Newforma and make sure that Newforma is working as successfully as possible for you and your organization.
Cool.
I think with Chris, I'll hand it back to you.
Yeah, there's a couple of questions in the chat that maybe we should just address right now. And I've answered them through the chat, but it says, how will this work with other platforms that others use, such as, and more specifically, Procore? And I answered that there's a connector that connects with Procore's RFIs and submittals, but you're also working on another connector, correct, with Procore?
With Procore, we're doing RFIs and submittals right now. We are working on potentially adding document control to that as well.
Okay, so,
Yep.
Oh, great. And then someone wanted to know if they could retroactively file their emails. And the way that I answered that was, yes, you can, as long as it's set up in Newforma. So we would have to set that project up first, and then you can retroactively file your emails.
Yep, absolutely.
Can you send emails directly from Newforma?
Yes, you absolutely can. Yeah, it's designed to, it's not designed to necessarily take the place of all those applications that we touched on and that it integrates with. But one of the things we try to ensure that we do is sort of your ongoing training is make sure that everything's as easy for you as possible. We as humans don't like change real well. So we try to make sure that however you want to do something, hopefully it will be possible for you to do in a way that conforms to the way you like to work. So if you get to the point where you're working through Newforma for most of your things, which obviously we'd like to see, we try to make sure that that's as seamless for you as possible.
One question that just came up said, I had issues sending plans with Newforma before. It was not guaranteed to be delivered, or it would take several hours. I think a lot of the people who have used Newforma have Info Exchange website.
Right.
And really that depends on the setup of that server and that person's connection on how well things will transfer back and forth through Info Exchange. We're using the Project Center server, so we should be able to track and know if something was delivered, when it was delivered, if they downloaded it. There's a lot of different things with this version of Newforma as opposed to the Info Exchange website. Did I answer that correctly?
Yeah, I would say that's good. And part of it too, just knowing, again, working with you guys through your implementation process. For those of you that have worked with Newforma before, maybe at another organization, a lot of that has to do with the infrastructure behind it. And I know your company has put a lot of effort into building up brand new, good quality servers, a good infrastructure for Newforma to sit on top of. So a lot of, to points, Chris, a lot of that will be helped by that good infrastructure being in place. I would say the other part of that is making sure that we really make sure your workflow process is well understood and trained well too. I've had a number of people who asked this question. I struggled with document control and issuing documents. We'll make sure that you understand how to do that well.
Yeah.
It's really intended to be a simple process that sometimes gets overthought, I'll say.
Yeah. And then the last question here is, how portable is Newforma? One thing I'll mention is as I was speaking to Eric yesterday during the server setup, he mentioned that the last few years have really gone into making sure that Newforma works more efficiently, faster. There's less delay. So I know that they've been working that the last few years. And then on Newforma portability, it does work with the tablet, it does work with a cell phone. If I'm correct, Conan, it works with Android and iPhone, right?
Yeah, so just a kind of a point of clarification there. The application, the Newforma Project Center client, full client, if you have a virtual desktop kind of environment, that can run on a tablet. I've done it. It works fine in that kind of environment because it's all running on the computer that it's running on. But we do have a lot of mobile applications that are designed to work across tablets and cell phones as well that hopefully will account for whatever it is that you're trying to work on. We are in the process of making sure that those are available across all Android and iOS devices. So not all of them are fully on Android just yet, but that is coming very soon. So we're rolling this out for you this year. You should be seeing all of that this year.
And Eric also mentioned that you can now file emails from a Mac.
Yes.
Yes. So that's new to me.
That is new.
That wasn't possible the last time I used it.
That's true.
Okay. Are there file size limits? Yeah, but we set them, right? So
yeah, strictly speaking, no. I mean, the biggest obstacle there is just to the point earlier. How much time does it take? I mean, the larger the file, the more time it'll take to be downloaded potentially. But yeah, Newforma doesn't really strictly enforce size limits. These can be very large file transfers.
all right, I'm going to share this screen and we're gonna jump over to training. And I've mentioned that Grace and I are working out with Pam and Stacy to set up the training. Stacy is going to be conducting the training this month. And Stacy, are you on?
Yeah, I am on.
Oh, okay. I'll stop sharing so we could, so you could just speak a little bit about the basic training that you're going to be covering and let people know who you are and get an early introduction.
Okay, so my name is Stacy. I've been with Newforma for just over 3 years now. So what we're going to be starting with in the basic training is we're going to learn a lot about navigating through Newforma and the platform and learning what the different uses are within Project Center itself, which is the application that will be installed on your desktop. And then also how to access all this type of all the project information in your Info Exchange website as well. So there'll be some really good details on both of those. Those are going to be the first 2 trainings that you guys will be all seeking out before we get into more advanced. And we like to do it this way just so you have the comfortability of getting through Newforma and being able to find all of the information that you're looking for and how to find all that information. And then, you know, once we get through all these basic training phases, we will, depending on who needs the more advanced training, not everybody will probably be put in those types of trainings, but you will see those come. You know, we'll be starting actually some of them this week, but that's for that group that really needed to use Newforma yesterday.
Yeah.
And but we'll be implementing that as it is as it's needed for the entire team.
Okay, and then Pam did a really good job of talking about the waterfall, the rollover training, and how that's going to help us make sure that everybody gets a chance to be trained. Also, there'll be videos, recordings, and then there's the Newforma University. But the other thing I wanted to mention too is that Newforma has one of the best help systems that I've ever seen. When you are in an activity center and you want to know how it works, if you hit the help button, it not only brings up it brings up a real quick reference guide on what that activity center does, but there's also videos and PDFs and how-tos built into their help desk system or their help system, and that really help you become more self-sufficient and learning what all of the features of Newforma can do. But we will start more intermediate and advanced trainings in April. If you have any requests or any questions about training, you can get a hold of either Grace or I. And like Stacy said and Pam said, our training starts next week with our first group. And that first group was selected by directors and managers that we reached out to see who would be the best people to be our first adopters. And then from there, Grace and I are going to work with Newforma to make sure everybody else starts getting the training in April. So just a few weeks away. So if you do have a request to get in the training earlier, just feel free to email Grace or I. And with that, I'm going to leave it up to questions and answers if anybody has any questions.
Chris, I did notice one more question came into the chat with regard to security. And the assumption there is correct. Osborne's servers do have your file, your network system does provide the majority of the direct security. But Newforma is highly secure as well. I mean, the major security is going to be handled by your network, but where you do provide access to information, then Newforma does provide you very granular control over the security of that information as well. So yeah, we do have a lot of effort that has been put into penetration testing of Newforma as well to make sure that we meet the highest levels of security.
And that, you know, that's our Newforma sits on top of our system. So it looks at our folders that are on our servers, where other systems, you uploaded that information and it was on their cloud, their servers. And so we had to rely on their security. And so that was another advantage, at least to me and to others, that the security for Newforma and the way that it works allows us to still have access to our files on our own servers as well as through Newforma. And we hope that you begin to use Newforma as that project center, as that hub to get to all the information that you need. But you would still have access to that through the P drive or through our own network. Our legacy active projects transitioning to Newforma. Right now we have over 1,200 active projects that I have to set up. As you guys begin to go through training, we can look at the retroactive or legacy projects. Right now it's fairly difficult because we're set up by client, and so I have to use Deltek to find where the project is and then map it. But yes, that is possible. We can do legacy projects. And again, that would be just a communication between you and myself on what projects we need to get set up in Newforma as legacy projects. Any other questions? Will using Newforma assist in reducing our file sizes? Conan?
Probably need a little more context to that, but in some cases, yes. Part of what it can do is, I'll just give you an example with email filing as an example. Those emails do get filed to the project, but Newforma does do things like ensuring that you're not getting duplication of files there. So where I might have had 10 people within the organization that had that email along with all of its attachments before, once it's filed to the projects, that could reduce sizing of some of those files. As far as other direct file sizes themselves, your Revit files, other documents that you create, not particularly, no, but it does make managing and finding them a lot easier, I would say.
I know it does zip up. It does zip up things that you're sending if you choose that option.
That is true.
Will Newforma's project number follow Deltek's? We'll use the same project number system that we've always used. We plan on integrating Deltek and Newforma in the future. So when a project is cleared and set up in Newforma, it will also set up the folder structure in the Newforma project, so you have it available immediately. I hope that answers that question, Dan. And then typically we have a 15-minute lag on average for Nasuni. When Newforma increase that lag? I don't believe so.
Well, Newforma is designed to work with Nasuni, other filers like that. We do have some configuration best practices around it. It's not particularly going to increase that lag. We just need to make sure that Newforma is working in conjunction with that lag. So where you've already got some timing, things that need to be set up with Nasuni, we just need to make sure that Newforma is set up to work along with that. And then there may be cases where you might see a slight lag just in terms of once we get the file from Nasuni, then of course we're going to move it out to that web portal for somebody to access. But those are usually pretty fast transfers because that's all happening inside of your own network at that point.
Okay. Let's see, I got another one. Will all projects use Newforma or will be on a needed basis? No, all projects are going to use Newforma. Legacy projects will be on a needed basis if you want to have those set up. Sean, do you agree with that? Yeah, he's nodding his head. And then John wanted to clarify reducing file size on our Outlook networks. Newforma does not duplicate an email. So if 7 people file an email, it knows that those 7 people filed it, and any attachments it saves is only the one attachment. So in that way, it does save. But on our Outlook servers, the amount of mail that we get is based on the Outlook server. But what we file to our projects will, it's smart enough to know that several people are filing the same email. And only look at that one attachment as one attachment. Now, if the attachment changes, it also can sense that and then file any additional copy changes that need to be filed. Is it possible to have emails filed automatically, or is it up to the individual to file their emails?
Let me answer. One thing we don't do well at right now is email filing, right? So, but there are risks to filing every email. So, the plan is not to go automated filing every email that comes in. So we just still have to be careful for liability issues on what we file and what we save within the system. To be perfectly honest, they have to be pertinent to the job. So we have to look at that before we answer that final question and say, but automating something might store an email that's not appropriate to be stored, that could be discoverable. So we do have to look at the risks of just automatically storing emails.
Right. And it doesn't automatically file them, but it does have predictive filing. So it may ask you, do you want to file this email for this project? And if it's right, you can say yes. And if it's incorrect, you can override it and say, no, it belongs in another project. So it does look at the subject line and some of the body, and it tries to predict where it's going. Here's a comment. We should take this
No.
opportunity to rethink organization a lot. Yeah, go ahead, Sean. You've read it.
We're looking at the directory structure, but you have legacy and everything else. We've been using this directory structure for 14 years. So we'll look at some tweaks to be made to it, but the directory structure, even moving to the new Deltek, P's might disappear. So there are some looks being made at the directory structure, but for the most part, it's going to stay the same because Newforma will now put things in the appropriate files kind of automatically. We path it to the right place. And so you guys don't have to necessarily go around and say, put it here, put it there, put it in outbound. It will put it in the right folder.
Correct. And Sean and I have been talking about this on and off for the last few years about, do we want to restructure our file system? And, maybe we will begin to look at that a little closer because the list of clients is really growing. And so we may look at that here in the near future. Anyone else?
Chris, if you don't mind, I'm just going to touch on the training questions just a little bit more.
Sure.
Everybody will be trained on this, whether you're remote, working on site, part-time, full-time. This training will be required. And like we've mentioned previously in this meeting, it is a waterfall training. So you'll be tossed into whichever ones. They are all online. So Stacy sends out those meeting invitations, and then Chris and myself forward those out to whoever will be on that training. So you'll get those all to your email. We're trying our best to stick to those lunchtime hours. Some of them do go 90 minutes, so just keep that in mind. Most of them are 60 minutes. But if you miss trainings, we can also try and lump you into the next training, or we are going to record them, put them on the bridge. So you'll have access to the training materials where you need them, when you need them, somehow, some way. And then like Conan mentioned, they have that help desk within Newforma as well. So that is another great resource for that.
Perfect. A couple other questions. Will guidelines be sent out for what to file on emails? You pretty much want to file everything except for, jokes or things of that nature that, or maybe you're venting about a contractor or something like that. You may want to consider not filing that one, especially if you're using some language in it or just, whatever. Another project question was, can we archive our project emails folders easier with Newforma? If it's about the archiving project, yeah. At closeout, if accounting gives us a list of projects to archive, we can run a process on the Newforma server that will archive those projects. We need to talk about that, whether they move or not. One of the solutions that we could do with Masuni is keep the project where it is and move it to a cheaper storage. But that's something that we have to work out in the future. I'm just, and I hope that answers the questions.
All right, Chris, we've taken our hour, so
Yeah,
good job. If there's any more questions, you can always contact Chris directly or Grace. But again, this is a company initiative that we need everyone to follow up and get in the training and be on board. So I appreciate everyone's time.